Welcome all Rotarians and guests to the Rochester Rotary Club. This is the best cloud space in all of Rochester for fellowship and service. My name is Wayne Hodges and I serve as the president here of the club, and I welcome each and every one of you. To start our meeting, will you please rise and join me in paying respect to the flag through the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you also please join me in reciting the Rotary four-way test of those things we think, say, or do? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Will it be fun for all? Tate Vo, as you correctly indicated earlier, will you please grace us with today's invocation?
Let's bow our heads. In this time of uncertainty, let us find strength in the bond of friendship, altruism, and unity. Let us pray for our leaders to guide us through the challenges we face locally and globally so that communities can continue to thrive in the midst of a pandemic and civil unrest. And lunch is served, right?
Okay. Amen. Thank you, Tate.
Thank you.
If we have any guests online today, if you would please go to the bottom of your screen and click on the chat feature and then type in your contact information. We would love to acknowledge your presence and provide you with some information that you probably are looking for to learn more about our club. Moving on to identify who was our 15th sign-on today. William Wagner. I counted you as the 15th person that signed into our meeting today, and so you are free from fines. Please enjoy that as it doesn't happen that often. Do we have any happy bucks? Hap, I think you said you had a happy buck. Did you type it in? Anybody else got happy bucks? Jeff Whitby asked a question about, was that the 1860s? I'm not sure. I think he's back to referring to Jay and my comments about the living through the 60s. Now, Tim, I'm not sure about Jay, but for me, it was the 1960s. Kathy Lazinski's happy to see everyone, and she's happy for the sunshine. William Wagner is basically $5 today, for the can return. Vince Mattina, sad he's wondering where are the happy bucks. Linda Eastman she's happy for Jay's haircut. I think she sold you out on that one, Jay. Lorene Kaschak, she's happy to have her son and fiance back in Michigan for good. Oh, that sounds good. Kathy Lazinski is happy because everyone looks good. John Somerville, he's happy that his basement carpet was installed, so the project is now finished. Well, if you're like me, John, it may be finished, but then then there's always you got to pay for it, and so good luck with that.
And the honey-do list.
Well, that honey-do list, it just keeps growing. Rachel, she's happy for the beautiful weather and to have her little one on as an official training free wheel bike rider. Oh, really? Well, do that before it gets too hot.
You ride fast enough, the wind is good, right?
Tim Duncan's happy to be able to meet a friend for dinner tomorrow at Cabin Cruiser. We won't ask if it's a guy or a gal, Tim. Okay, we'll just keep, what happens here stays here. Any other happy bucks? Tim assures us it's a colleague. Anyone else? Moving on then from our happy bucks, member birthdays. We have one member birthday that actually happens on the 17th, tomorrow. It is Albert Bourdine. And will you all please join me in singing happy birthday to Albert? Happy birthday
to you.
Happy
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Happy birthday, dear young.
Happy
Happy birthday to you.
$5,
$5,
please. We have no club anniversaries today to celebrate. So with that, let's move on and cover off on our announcements. The Rotary Gateway Park. Bill announced last week that on the 21st, we're going to have a picnic out at Rotary Gateway Park to celebrate and basically acknowledge the gift of the gazebo that will be completed by then. John, I believe you have created a sign-up sheet online for us, and so we just simply go online and sign up, because we do need to know an idea of how many people are going to show up or intend to show up at that picnic. So we've got the appropriate amount of food and the appropriate amount of spacing. So,
Hey, Wayne?
Yep.
Wayne, this is Bill. Hey, just make sure it's the 21st of July, not
Yep.
June.
21st of
Okay,
July,
so-
you're right.
Yeah, mark it on your calendar. And thanks, John, for setting up that sign-up sheet. Thanks, Wayne. Hey, listen, I don't have my computer expert here, so I'm on my phone.
Well, that's
I
allowed.
couldn't get on. Okay.
That's allowed.
All right. Thanks.
Uh,
Okay. I'll
John,
mute
where
myself
can
now.
where can everybody find this list to sign up on?
So I just added a link to the RSVP site to the chat here, and then we'll email it out to the whole club after the meeting.
Okay, so everybody should get a notice from John via the chat identifying where you can go to sign up for the picnic on July 21st. And I would suggest, if you've got any questions, you reach back to John, as he is our wizard on that, and takes good care of it. Does anybody have any questions for John at this time? If we don't have any, one of the things that we get to do as a Rotary Club from time to time is to celebrate. And our founder, Paul Harris, once said that perhaps dreaming is not bad if one dreams good dreams and makes them come true. In Rotary, we make dreams a reality through ordinary projects and activities here at home and around the world. These projects would not be possible without the generous support of Rotarians and friends of our foundation. The Rotary Foundation recognizes those individuals who contribute $1,000 or more annually to the Annual Fund, Polio Plus, or an approved foundation grants by inducting them into as a Paul Harris Fellow. Today, the Rochester Rotary Club honors a dedicated member into the Rotary Foundation as a member and a Paul Harris Fellow. Now, Paul Harris Fellow gifts enable Rotary's worldwide network of dedicated humanitarians to implement projects that address pressing needs in communities around the world. Because of these contributions, adults and children alike can learn to read and write. Children are vaccinated against polio and other diseases. Women are given microloans and vocational training that enables them to support themselves and their family in a healthy and dignified way. Teachers and school children have access to toilets and facilities and clean drinking water. Scholars are able to study ways to prevent maternal and child mortality. And professionals from around the world can find ways to promote peace by convening and to discuss strategies for resolving conflict and fostering peace. Today, my friends, we get to recognize our newest Paul Harris Fellow. This, in fact, is his second Paul Harris. I must tell you that, have you ever tried to herd cats? Well, that's what it's like frequently when you get involved in a volunteer organization, especially one as large and as diverse as ours. Educating the board of directors who don't know a debit from a credit, how to understand budgets and financial reports, and both on the charity side and on the club side, making it clear, correct, and timely reports is a significant challenge for the club. And today we want to acknowledge the services for the past several years of Vince Mattina. Vince, you have done yeoman's work in helping our club move forward.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting that. Thanks, Wayne.
Well, you have deserved it, my friend. You have set a great example. I know for a fact you've actually taken some work or time off from work from time to time so you could focus on getting the things done at Rotary that you thought were important to do. And that is a significant level of commitment. And we appreciate that. You have set a great example for the rest of us. So with that, I want to acknowledge Vince. Unfortunately, Vince, I can't hand you your next pin. It will be sent to you. Our chairman of our foundation committee assures me that it's in the mail as of today. And I think you can see some of the chat comments coming in. This is well deserved, Vince, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
Well, you are welcome. Moving on, let's talk about Rotarian of the Week, and let's move over to our IT, or one of our IT wizards, John Somerville.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks again for the opportunity to be Rotarian of the Week. Glad that I don't have to have the actual award with me, but really excited about who I want to give it to, because as much as I do to set up the Zoom meetings and all that sort of stuff, none of that would have happened without the driving force of Mr. Hodges, our president. So really the hero of keeping this club alive, the person with the vision, the person with the motivation to call me 3 or 4 times a day, make sure that I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, is Wayne Hodges. So Wayne, congratulations on being Rotarian of the Week.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And those times when I have crossed the line from being an asset into something, into being a pain in the you-know-what, you have my apologies, but thank you. Moving on to another one of our IT assets in the club, let's ask our sheriff, David Blair, to grace us with his presence.
Thank you so much, Wayne. I really appreciate it. How's everybody doing out there?
Cool.
Thumbs up. It's been a tough road, right? I gotta apologize. There's some background noise there. I got two kids. By the way, anybody that has 2 or more kids under the age of 10, you don't need to pay any fines at all, ever. It's too much. Linda, the president is a doctor. I missed the country. We're not talking about America, right? Just making sure that wasn't America because I didn't think so.
Guatemala.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. I don't see Chief Schettenhelm here, but he informed me that over the weekend, protesters stole some wheels off of a Rochester City police car. He tells me that his team is working tirelessly to catch the thieves, but there are no leads yet. If you've given a haircut to somebody over the quarantine, you can see I'm about due. That's a $1 fine. If you've given yourself a haircut, that's a $2 fine. If you have gone without a haircut and you desperately need one, that's a $3 fine. If you've gone to the black market to source an underground haircut during the quarantine, that's a $4 fine right there. If you've had groceries delivered, please pay $1. If you've had more than 3 Amazon deliveries per week, that's a $3 fine. If you're not wearing a mask when you go out, that's a $4 fine. If you are like Kelly Dean or Rhonda Panzik and you've got a mask that correlates and matches the rest of your outfit, that's a $5 unnecessary fine right there. Linda Eastman, you need to pay $5. Social distancing is not an excuse to keep Jay out of your hair, so that's not valid. Dick Spees, please pay $5 for actually thinking that Jerry was in Italy for the meeting. Nail salons are open. Pedicures, manicures, massages. Vince Mattina is very interested in getting back to all those activities. That's a $5 fine for Vince. I did want to bring up to everyone's attention that restaurants are open. And you may recall we went through quite a few restaurants that had Rotarian themed dishes on their menu. For instance, Dairy Queen has the Paul Haig Candy Crunch. We talked about that. It's vanilla ice cream with caramel, strawberries, and gemstones in it. Well, a couple more that I wanted to share. RJ's Pub has the Kelly Dean and Rhonda Quarantini is new on their menu. It has an astonishing 14 shots of alcohol. So just be sure you've got a ride for that one, and it's a $5 fine if they're online. Take Sushi, my favorite restaurant. Kathy's Fresh Catch is Kathy Lazinski's menu item there. Just be aware it's a live fish. It's not just raw, it's actually, they bring it live and you're responsible for taking care of that. So those are 2 new dishes I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. Speaking of fish, hey, Rachel, did you hear about the fight at the seafood restaurant? I hear there were battered fish everywhere. And I don't know if, Ernie, if you noticed, but some stores are still without toilet paper. They're completely wiped out. Now, I am going to be telling a few quarantine related jokes, but they're just inside jokes. So we're clear. Tim, got a new kitten. Wanted to bring him by, take a look. I'm going to call him Kitten Quarantino. That's a new one. Hey, Ron, do you know why they call it a novel coronavirus? I'd tell you, but it's a long story. Boy, I'd tell you more coronavirus jokes, but I'm worried it might take you a couple weeks to get them. Boy, these jokes just write themselves. You could really say it's a pandemic that's happening. Just a few more. Hey, Wayne, you'd called me about your printer making some noise. It's really just the paper jamming. Dave Erdley, hey, you may have gotten this before. What do you call someone who lies about being a dad? Well, that's a faux pas, right there. And finally, hey, Dave Archibald. Boy, Dave Archibald's here. You're late to a meeting where you don't even need to leave. Wow. Well, welcome, Dave. But there's two goldfish in a tank. What did one say to the other, Dave? You know how to drive this thing? Now, I can't hear the audio. I figure everybody's muted, but I know how hard you were laughing. So if you did even get a little chuckle, I want you to open up the chat. In the chat, type at least $5, and that will be taken from your Rotary account and go towards Rotary charities for all the great things that we do in the club. So take care and God bless. Back to you, Wayne.
David. Some of those were pretty cute. Am I unmuted? Yeah.
You're good, Wayne.
Yep. Moving on to, and thank you, David. I've been waiting to hear the humor come back on the COVID-19, because to me, that tells me about the health of our psyche, that, we're because we use humor to deal with things that we're uncomfortable dealing with forthrightly. And so I appreciated hearing those humorous questions and comments. David Erdley has put together a great group of speakers to help us all stay up to date, and also to focus on all the different points of view of how the COVID-19 virus has affected us, primarily locally. And today we're blessed with another Rotarian who is joining us, Angela Delpup. And Angela is going to give us the Ascension Providence's perspective on what it's been like to deal with the COVID-19 virus. So, Angela, with that, I will turn the microphone over to you. I see the screen, but if you're talking, Angela, I am not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Sorry, I was muted. I've
Well, that's
done
okay.
a lot of.
I've been worse. I've been in worse shape before, so.
That's okay. I haven't been a presenter, but I've sat through many Zoom. So I just wanted to start out. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to present. I kind of wanted to give you a perspective from what we've been going through here at the hospital and kind of where we're at now. And I wanted to just start with this. I'm not going to read this poem, but in the height of the pandemic, Renee Courtwright sent this to me. And it really was, it kind of got me through. It kind of gave me some hope, because as we look at this was written in 1869 and then reprinted again in 1919 after the Spanish flu pandemic. And it's like, we're not the first to go through this. And some of the things that this poem says are a lot of what we saw people doing during the pandemic: reading books, listening, getting exercise, finding new ways to do things. And so really what was encouraging to me was the hope and healing that occurred following the pandemic, and the dreams of new visions, new ways of living and healing. And I think that that's really where we're going now. But just to kind of give you an idea of what we went through, David asked me to share how our associates doing, what we're doing to celebrate success, and how the Rotary can support Ascension Providence Rochester, and just basically some general observations. So really, I wanted to kind of just quickly go through the journey that we went on here. And we started with our incident command. And this is one of those things that, you know how you always have those drills and you never think you'll use them? Well, basically, we have had emergency preparedness plan drills all along. And so this, we had to activate our emergency preparedness plan. And this wasn't just at a local level. So this started from Ascension National, and they activated their plan. This was kind of their structure for Michigan. And then each hospital, each ministry had their own setup. So pretty quick, we put this structure in place. And within probably a week, we were getting information from our national command center and our Michigan command center. And I think that's one of the benefits of being part of a large healthcare system, is we had a lot of support going through this. So as we look at the incident command timeline, you can see from about March 16th was when we activated our incident command. Through really just about 3 weeks ago that we kind of slowed things down. But you can see we were hit. We actually were a little bit not hit as bad out here as our sister hospitals in southeastern Michigan. So St. John, Maine, Southfield, and Macomb really got slammed, and they got slammed about a week before us. So as they started ramping up, we kind of had an extra week to get things in place here. And you can see we one of the first things we did was mobilize our emergency room for COVID. So we wanted to separate, set up a whole area where the COVID patients were going to go. We created special teams. We had a surge plan, and we managed to refine that. And so basically, this is how fast we moved from being the community hospital that we are right now to being completely COVID in probably about a week and a half. We started with our 5 East Observation Unit and our ICU as the first departments to take on our COVID patients. And from there, we set up protocols, PPE, how we're going to place it, who's going to care for the patients, what models of care to put up, because basically we needed ICU nurses, and there's already a shortage of ICU nurses, so we had to get really creative in how we were going to manage our resources to be able to take care of our patients, and really how do we limit the amount of exposure to the patients and the amount of PPE that we needed, because at that time we really didn't know how much we were going to get. Now we always had PPE here. We followed the CDC guidelines, so we never really had to worry about that, but there was always the unknown. We didn't know what to expect and what was coming down the road. So basically we used that model of how we set it up, and we just rolled it out. So it was ICU, then we turned our CVICU into COVID ICU. Then we turned our OR into an ICU. So we completely transformed most of our OR. We did keep a couple rooms separate for emergent cases that came in, but basically our OR, the equipment for our anesthesia equipment was flipped over to vents. And then we had our PACU with our clean ICU. And then all of our medical beds, we completely transitioned our whole cell tower to negative pressure. So our 4th South, our 6th South were COVID. We did have our, we had to keep our rehab unit the same. And then our cardiac and medical were all mixed in onto our 5 South and 5 West. We do have a couple floors that are empty right now from when we transitioned over to our South Tower, so we kind of brought them back up too. Our 6 East turned into medical, and then our 4 East was prepped to open, but we never really had to open that. The emergency room was set up for drive-up testing, split flow, which means like if you were COVID, you went one way. If you were not, you went another. And then our emergency room was really for emergent cases only. So if there was a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, we would completely separate that from the other side. A few of the challenges that we had was definitely staffing. And so when we looked at ICU specifically, we had to create a whole new model of care. So typically an ICU nurse might have 1 or 2 patients depending on the diagnosis. Well, we didn't have enough when you have a whole hospital almost full of patients that need that level of care. So we had to set up a model of care where we had deploy nurses basically from our OR, and we trained them to be deputy nurses. So what that looked like is we had maybe 5 or 6 patients with 1 ICU nurse and then 3 or 4 deputy nurses to help care for that. And I got to tell you, everyone really stepped up because nursing is pretty specific in the role that they play in the department that you're in. So if you're a rehab nurse, you pretty much take care of rehab patients. That's a whole lot different than a nurse who works in the ICU, which is a whole lot different than a nurse who works in the operating room. And I'll tell you, it was everyone really stepped up, and it was really, really outside of many of their comfort levels to do that. Testing kits initially were really a struggle. So we would test, and then we had to send them to the state, and it was anywhere from about 7 to 10 day turnaround. So we would have these patients here, and we weren't sure if they were COVID or not. So we had to just treat all of those as COVID patients. And then really the changing guidelines from the CDC, we had meetings, we would have incident command meetings at like 10 a.m. We'd set our day, what needed to be done, and then by 2 o'clock we'd get back together, and many times that information would change. And so just keeping up on that was really challenging. And then really the surge of the southeastern Michigan. And so because we didn't get it as bad here, we ended up transferring patients and taking the load off of our sister hospitals. So we had many patients that came from Southfield, Macomb, and St. John here, and so we took care of them there. We had national support, which is, I think, one of the a huge success is we didn't have the nurses here, but there were other parts of the country that weren't surging yet. So we had nurses come from some of our sister hospitals out west. They came here and worked alongside our nurses here, which was really, really helpful. In fact, now Texas is surging, so they were asking for nurses from here to go out and help them. And in just like one day, we probably had 12 or 15 nurses volunteer to do that just from our hospital. So that being able to cross over and help like that has really been probably something that some of the other hospitals don't have, so that's really been helpful for us. Our medical staff really jumped in. We had to create medical teams to take care of these patients, and they had to be 24/7. So we looked at all of our AMG, our employed physicians. We brought some of those came over. Our residents were really instrumental in helping assess these patients, discharge these patients, making sure that they had everything they need. And then I think one of the biggest challenges really was how these patients were alone. Visitors were not allowed. And so these patients were really, really sick. Some of them were dying, and they didn't have their loved ones here. And so we really had to set up ways to communicate. And so FaceTime technology, iPads, that's really how our families were able to communicate with their loved ones here in the hospital. So I think that was one of the more challenging things that we had to go through. Now, as we reemerge here, we do have many safety measures in place. And I think our hospital has always been one of the cleanest hospitals I've ever been in, but it is even cleaner now. So they are constantly cleaning. We do have updated visitor guidelines, so it is safe to come into the hospital. You can't get past a door without getting your temperature checked, without getting a mask, without getting screened with the questions to see if anyone has any of the symptoms. We are limiting our visitors to 1 per patient at a time and discouraging really anyone under the age of 18 and those at risk. We do have ongoing appropriate use of PPE, and we have plenty of PPE here. We continue to encourage hand washing and hand sanitation. appropriate patient testing. So all of our surgery patients are getting tested. We have a drive-up COVID test, so they get tested prior. And the nice thing now is we were able to institute rapid COVID test here at our hospital, and then we also have St. John has a 24-hour test. So we don't have to send those tests out. We can get those taken care of here and get those results back either within 5 minutes or within 24 hours. So all of our patients who are having any kind of procedures are getting tested. We do have the protective barriers at our visitor reception desks and social distancing. We've moved furniture. We have signage like you see throughout, the community. And so what does the future look like? And I think this is really a big question. Things are going to be different. We actually have teams at the national and state level looking at how are we going to do things differently. Consumer needs are different and their expectations are different. Access points are different. We went from doing probably 200 virtual care visits a day to like 3,000. So virtual care really has exploded, and it's something that's not new. It's something that in healthcare we've really been trying to encourage people to do. But now we are doing virtual care visits. We're doing education. Our diabetes education has pretty much the whole time been doing virtual visits, and so people have been able to still get that education and that one-on-one care that they need. We've been doing some physical therapy virtually. So a lot of, we're going to see a lot of a different look on what that's going to look like going down in the future. Our operating models are different. Service offerings are going to be different. And our community outreach. It's so important for us to get out in the community, and I think this just shows more than anything how important it is that our community is healthy. And I know, several months ago I presented the community health needs assessment and how our priorities are cardiac health and healthy lifestyles and mental wellness. And all of those things really, it kind of just bubbles that up to the top. So people who are healthier and do not have some of those pre-existing conditions really weren't as much a target as those who did. So we're going to be even doing more outreach, really trying to work on keeping our community healthier and getting them the resources that they need, and then really reducing the disparities of care. But really it is kind of like, the road untraveled right now, so we're going to see how it all pans out. What was our associate support like? And I know this is one of the things that David asked, and we really were so fortunate. I know when Wendy presented, she talked about the things that she did that she coordinated with the community, our food. We've had prayer services. We had thank you cards and just outpouring of support for our community, from our community, that really you don't know how much all of that did. All of you who supported us, who did a thank you, who prayed for us, all of that really made a huge impact on the day-to-day people who were working in and out here. We did create a caregiver support campaign because of this to help with our associate hardship requests. I know many of you have contributed to this, which has been just wonderful. We raised over $26,000, and we're still working on that with a match from the foundation of $10,000. So we've had over $36,000 that we have been able to use to support requests from our hardship fund. Even though our associates are working, many of their family members are not. And so if they're here, away from their family, and we really don't want them to have to worry about what's going on at home, especially financially, if we can help them. And really, the majority of the requests were for food. They just needed help feeding their family, or maybe rent money or utility expenses. When we look at some of these businesses who have been out for, 3-4 months, that's a lot. Those are expenses, and even if, there is unemployment in that, that's a lot more than what some of these families are able to handle. So we have been very fortunate to be able to offer that support. Some other things that we've used with this fund is really to help our associates spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Most of them were working over Easter. They were working long hours. They were here for Mother's Day. So we tried to put together some little gifts and treats for them. Care baskets, we had every other day we would fill these little tubs with snacks and hands. Your lips get so dry with those masks on and their faces were dry, so lotions and things like that just to make it a little bit easier. Some of our units, our 5 East and our ICU, will continue to be have to take care of COVID patients. We really only have one right now, but if there is a surge and we get back, one of the things that really was peace of mind for them was not to have to wear the clothing, their scrubs and that home with them, and with the potential of taking those germs home. So we've got shoe covers and fanny packs, and we have covers that they can wear over their scrubs, and those are all laundered here. So that was really helpful. And other things that really have been helpful that Ascension Michigan has put together, our mission team, we have had a lot of associate self-care and support. So if you can see here, there's well-being, there's reflection and prayers, there's on-demand spiritual care, employee assistance. All of this has really been very helpful, peer support sessions. So they have these resources for them. And we also have our behavioral health leaders in the state recognized that there was going to be some trauma and some post-traumatic with our associates who have been taking care of these patients. So they've created what they call a We Care program, and at each hospital they have a team of social workers and behavioral health experts, and they're doing one-on-one, they're doing some group sessions with our associates to help them get through and get past this, because we know in the heat of it, when it was busy, crazy, they just did what they had to do. Some of them were working 6-7 days in a row, and so now that it's kind of died down, things are kind of, it's kind of hitting them. So we want to be able to support them and get them through that. And then really, what can you do? Really stay healthy. Get your regular checkups, get your screenings, eat healthy, drink your water, get your exercise. I think one of the nicest things that I've seen coming back and forth every day from the hospital is how many people are outside, how many of them are walking and riding their bikes. And it's really great to see that, because all of that promotes really those healthy lifestyles. Continue to follow the CDC guidelines of washing your hands, masking, social distancing. Stay home if you're not feeling well. Take care of your mental health, and really encourage your family and friends to seek medical attention if they're ill or experiencing any signs of distress. Our healthcare facilities are safe. All of our doctors' offices, all of our outpatients, everything is safe and clean, and we are set up to take care of that. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Well, I think Jerry Gross asked if you could make the presentation available to the club.
Sure.
Okay. And then Christine Haig asked how many of your staff caught the COVID-19?
We did not have too many. I don't have those numbers, but it was really relatively low. We might have had, I would guess maybe about 10 that I know of. A couple of physicians I know we had a couple of nurses. So maybe about 10 to 15 that were really out for a long period of time. But we can't complain here. We stayed relatively healthy. I know one of our ministries, their whole incident command went down. So wow. They had everyone that was in their incident command, which was like the leaders running all of it, they all were out with COVID. So we were pretty lucky.
David Archibald asked if the staff was receiving any hazard pay during these difficult times, and are you offering counseling to your staff?
We are offering counseling. The hazard pay, I'm not really sure. We are a union environment, and so a lot of the pay structure is set by that. I know there was, I think there was some incentive and things like that, but I can't really speak to, I really don't know what that was. But I do know that people were definitely, compensated if they were working the extra hours, if they were coming in, and but I can't speak to anything above that. I don't know.
Okay. Vince Mattina asked, is the hospital still doing drive-up testing?
We, out for just anyone, no. We're just doing the drive-up for procedures.
Okay.
There is drive-through testing available in Rochester Hills at 633 East South Boulevard. Those tests are being conducted by Michigan healthcare professionals, just in case anybody is interested in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions, but Angela, would you please take back to all of your peers just an unbelievably strong, heartfelt thanks. So often we take things for granted. In fact, that's been one of the biggest surprises to me personally of, as far as lessons of how much I took for granted that basically was life and death when it was put in question. And I got to tell you, from what I can tell, our healthcare professionals really stepped up to the bar and raised it significantly. And I don't know of a person that doesn't appreciate that, deep down in their heart, because it was life or death for a lot of people. And just an enormous thank you.
Oh, thank you for all the community support.
Well,
and I definitely will share that.
Please do. Before we close our meeting off, next week, we're going to hear from our school superintendent talking about, what is the impact on education in a COVID-19 world, in particular as we try and move forward here. And so I think, again, our speaker committee in the form of David Erdley have done a great job of providing us with really great information that is not only just timely, but also really significant. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from that also. You may want to share this with some of your neighbors and friends, especially if they've got children that are in the school system. I can imagine that they might be keenly interested to hear from Dr. Shaner. With that, we will meet again next week. And I thank you all for attending. We will leave the mics open until everyone hangs up. But thank you much. And meeting is adjourned.